Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Front Courtyard Committee presentation from Middleburg Central School Districts. I would like to thank you all very much for making time out of your busy day to attend this presentation, and I'm really excited to share our work with you. So the mission of the Front Courtyard Committee has been to work collaboratively and imaginatively to offer 3 different design schemes to re-envision the front courtyard of the junior-senior high school and present these draft iterations to our stakeholders for their review, comment, and feedback. Tonight is the night where we showcase the work we have done so far, and we all hope that you find something that you like. Before I begin, I'd like to highlight the feedback process, which is so key to everything that we're doing in Middleburg. Due to time constraints, we will not be addressing feedback in real time. If and when you would like to offer questions, comments, or ideas, please use the email frontcourtyard@middleburgcsd.org to send us your feedback or your concerns in real time. There will also be a feedback form found on our website, as well as an archived recording of this meeting in case for those who have missed it. If you would like to request hard copies of the plans, we are happy to send them to you. Please use the email address that I just mentioned, frontcourtyard@middleburgcsd.org. We ask that all correspondence be received before the close of business on January 8th, 2021. The committee will forward their recommendation to the Board of Education for discussion on January 16th. We hope to move forward with whatever is decided in the spring of 2021, weather permitting. The front courtyard work will be funded through what's called a capital outlay exception. This $100,000 outlay is a project that is enacted, allowed by law, and provides that a district may receive building aid in the following year for one project each year in the district not to exceed $100,000. These projects also require full voter authorization and must be paid by budgetary appropriation. Districts may not use borrowed money for this project or for these projects. Last May, if you recall, voters approved a 2020-21 $100,000 capital outlay project as part of the budget vote. The district is currently working with our architect to submit plans for this project, which will include work to be done on the front courtyard. The district will receive approximately 80% in state aid for any costs related to the landscape of the front courtyard being discussed tonight. So now I would like to introduce the members of our hardworking, intelligent, and creative Front Courtyard Committee. They are Sarah Hooper, Anna Hooper, Wes Andrews, Kim Smith, Dana Hamm, Vicki Hoerz, Terry Gillooley, Alastair Aitchison, our architect from SEI, and Mike Herzog, landscape architect from the LA Group. Welcome and thank you. Our communication director is Julia Leikenday. A special thanks to Matt Sloan, Maria Syme, our BOE, and Kim Lawyer for all the hard work and support in getting this presentation off the ground. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mike Herzog. Take it away, Mike.
Brian, thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure to be part of this meeting. I just wish I could be there right now, although with the snowstorm that's coming down, maybe it's good that we're all at home. Brian, like yourself, I just want to acknowledge that the committee, it truly was it's a hardworking group. They spent a lot of time coming up with ideas. It was you mentioned it was a collaborative effort, and that was my impression as well. And I've worked with a lot of school committees, and sometimes you have shared decision making and one person's making decision and sharing it with everyone. This truly was, I think, the essence of shared decision making, where everybody's thoughts were accepted and analyzed and discussed. So my kudos to the committee themselves. With that said, I'd just like to move on because I know we have a lot to get through here this evening. Why don't we just go to the next slide, please? So there we go. All right, so what I'd like to do is talk about the existing conditions that the folks in the community see when they're driving by on Main Street right now. Now, before I get started too, I should just mention that the school district contracted with Davy Resource Group. They are a fine arborist. You know, we see their trucks all over the New York State and the Northeast, up and down probably in many of the states in our union here. They know their business, and they put together a comprehensive report for the school. I'm just going to quickly go through the trees that exist and what they had mentioned in their report. I'm going to start with the tree that's on the upper right-hand corner of the plan. That's a Crimson King tree, Crimson King Norway maple. They deemed it to be in fair condition. They had recommended that at some point the school district think about pruning it. Just moving down a little bit, the next tree with the green tag, that's a Norway maple. Once again, they found it to be fair condition, and they just thought that some selective pruning would be a good idea in the near future. Going down to the tree that's on the front corner of your property by the drive, the entry drive, Norway maple as well. But they found that to be in a poor condition. I know I want to go back and I want to take a closer look at that. They actually recommended that to be removed. Whether the committee and the school district board of education feel that that's a good idea or not, I think we'll study a little bit more. But that was one tree that they had some concerns with, and they just thought that we should take another look at. I'm going to talk about the tree that is right in front of your main portico entry to the building, just to the right of the central walkway spine. Again, that's a maple that we all saw was in poor condition recently. There's a lot of flagging of branches and some branches that came down. That tree should be removed already if it's not removed. It should be removed if it's not removed already. So that one really is in poor shape, and I think there is a health and safety issue with some branches that might fall in the future. So something for the Board of Education and the administration to think about in the community. Moving out to the center of the property, that the main drive or walkway that goes to towards Main Street, there's a sugar maple there, fair condition. Once again, thought that maybe it should be pruned. I'm going to move over to the left, the tree that's closest to the corner of Clover Y, but also on Main Street. That once again is a sugar maple, fair condition. Wants a little bit of pruning, selective pruning is recommended. Just above that tree is a Crimson King, again, fair condition and pruning. And then above that is a sugar maple. They say that sugar maple, which is closest to the corner of the building on the right side, or I'm sorry, on the left side, is a moderate risk, and some, it's in fair condition, but some more aggressive pruning might be necessary there. So why don't we switch over to the next slide? And we're just providing this image to show a picture of what the school is looking like from Main Street as it presently exists right now. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to do is start presenting one of three options. Now, I'm going to encourage the committee to be involved, because really this is their hard work. This is their vision. And we just try to, as a design team, the SEI design group and the LA group, to take that vision and graphically show it for the presentation. So I am really, encourage folks to take part. So in consideration of the historical importance of the school district, the committee felt that one of the options that should be considered was to put trees back in similar locations to where they were before. Now, should mention that what we want to do is try to get it away from the walk so that we're not going to damage the concrete that was recently installed with roots that might come up and change, crack pavement and things like that. So, but try to keep that type of the historical character that was once there. And the idea is to bring in deciduous trees, trees that lose their leaves perhaps maybe even the same genus and species of what was there before, but improved varieties that might be a little bit smaller and a little bit stronger. So,
right. And Mike, this is Wes. Yeah, when we talked about this one, this was probably the first one that we came up with. Everything was a little raw. We had just just the front yard really looked, it was in rough shape, and it was kind of one of those things we said, the easiest solution at that particular point was to, we could plant exactly what was there, and as we moved through it, we came up with other things. But this was kind of the first thing we came up with, was just put back what was taken down. So that was really the concept behind this one.
Yeah. And Wes, I know SEI did a great job of doing some renderings of this 2D plan and put it into 3D. So perhaps we just switch over to the next slide. So what we did is we took a picture of the existing conditions off of Main Street, the one that you just saw a couple of slides ago. And now we just put in a couple of images of trees to just show how that will fill things in, and in the presence of the building off of Main Street once again. So as Wes and I mentioned, it'll just get you back close to what you had before.
And the one other thing, if you do notice, there are some added planting beds in there, kind of at the front and also towards the school a little bit as well. There's some additional planting beds in there for some, perennials and annuals to go in there as well.
Yeah, and Wes, I just want to bring this up because I really feel that it's important, at least for myself, to give back to the younger generation. I know that I was talking with one of the partners from SEI Design in one of your agricultural classes last year, and perhaps the smaller plants, maybe they don't get done right away. Again, that's something for the committee, the Board of Education, the administration to think about. But maybe that's a class project, and I would love to be, help be part of that and maybe provide some advice and, see where that might go.
Yeah, I agree. And it was great working with you, Mike. We appreciate it.
Yeah. So why don't we switch over to the next slide? So this is option 2. And option 2 is, we call the open lawn concept. I just want to give everybody just my impressions of Middleburg. And they actually go back to 1980, when I was an 18-year-old driving by Middleburg, going to SUNY Cobleskill, where I went to school for a couple of years as a landscape development major there. And I distinctly remember your beautiful historic hamlet and your high school. It has a stunning presence within your community. And I personally think it's a piece of architecture that has stood the test of time. So in this option, what the committee was looking to do is to really open up that, keep that open. And we'll go to an image in a second to show what we're thinking about. But the idea is to maybe plant a couple of trees around the outside, but really keep the open lawn effect in place, really accentuate that beautiful historic portico towards Main Street, and just work with that. You might have a couple of flowering trees along the main entry walk that parallels the front of the building as well, and maybe some additional plants that to accentuate corners with some plantings of annuals, perennials, some flowering shrubs and things. So I'm sure if anybody else within the group has any comments about this option.
Yeah, this is Dana. I think what I'll add is that with this concept, we approached it with kind of a hybrid idea of formal, open park-like plantings. And what I mean by that is, so the sidewalk that parallels the school will have small flowering trees kind of flanking the sidewalk as you go down for more of a formal access, whereas the sidewalk that's perpendicular to the school, the main entry, will remain open, and it'll be more of a balanced planting, not so much symmetrical, but it'll be balanced, and it'll preserve that open lawn panel that we currently have which I think will be very flexible when it comes to the events that will be held on the front lawn, you know, allows a lot of movement. And it will also not block the stairs at the school where, you know, it's a main focal point during a lot of events. So I think this one achieves a lot of different things. No, it's very simple, has a good impact.
Dana, if you wouldn't mind too, perhaps we move to the next slide, just as an image to show some of the things that you're talking about.
Yeah, so you see, we don't, you know, we're not proposing to put trees right along the main sidewalk. They're staying more towards the outside of the lawn. So it's really going to keep that space open and never block the front entrance. And then we also have the seasonal plantings too at either end of the sidewalk.
Yeah, and once again, I think that the committee's image of those, the smaller plantings is just to accentuate entry and gateway onto the school property itself. Why don't we move on to option number 3? So option number 3, the committee calls the symmetrical concept. So more of a formal design. And in this option, the committee just felt it was important to recognize the symmetrical features of your high school architecture, just with some more formal plantings and maybe put in some smaller trees. And again, just keeping the view open from the roadway. Any comments from the group on option 3?
Yeah, one thing I really liked about this plan is we're kind of accentuating the front of our building by running a line of flowering trees along that front axis, creating, kind of highlighting the front of our building and also recreating some symmetry, playing off the architecture of the front pillars, while also keeping the front stairway open. I know we have band concerts in the summer, so it's important to have a place for people to sit. I think this looks beautiful. I will say that one problem with this one is if we do lose a tree somewhere in here, it will definitely affect the rest of the plan. So that is something to be considered with a plan like this that's more formal and symmetrical.
Yeah, and Kim, you brought up something that I even forgot to mention in the beginning. One of the thoughts from the committee that I picked up along the way was the idea of graduations and maybe some concerts along the front of the building. So the open lawn beyond the portico and beyond the front entry stairs, that might help facilitate some of those activities that you're thinking about.
Yeah, I think, and that's something to think about, like with options 2 and 3, we have the car show in the spring as part of Technopalooza, where we've got all the antique cars parked in the front lawn. So options 2 and 3 both allow for a lot of parking out front. We did try to consider the community use of the property and what kind of events are held out there. So when we created the different plans, we did take those kind of things into account.
So I was going to move on and talk about plant palette. Before I switch to other slides, just wondering, were there any final thoughts before we moved away from the plans and the renderings? Okay, so sounds like we should move on. So once again, I think it's important for you to mention that the school and the committee, they haven't chosen any trees. What we've talked about are palettes of trees that might be used. And the idea is to pick trees that are as native as possible, but maybe not the old versions. Like let's say the sugar maples got huge out in front. Maybe it's a variety of sugar maple, but it's a new improved cultivar that is a little bit more confined in its growing characteristics. So this first tree right here is a red maple. I'm going to put on my glasses just so I can see things a little bit better. So again, it's just one of the possibilities that we discussed. We all know maples, beautiful, especially the red maple, beautiful red leaves in the fall. Next slide. Again, working with deciduous trees, maybe a type of red oak, but we want to try to get a variety that stays a little bit smaller. Again, it's a tested type of tree, new to the palette for Middleburg. So whether that's appropriate or not, I don't know, but it's just something that we discussed, and it does have significant fall interest as well with colors of leaves. Next slide, please. The next one is a type of linden or basswood. Again, we see that quite a bit in the area in the Northeast and in New York State. It's a native tree, and in this case, yellow leaves in the fall. Another tried and true are birches, whether birches you can get in singular form, singular trunk, or multiple trunks, multiple branches going into, or trunks to create a clump form. So another possibility when we jump through again. So in some of the options, actually many of the options, we talked about flowering trees and to add some interest to the front lawn area if we replant some trees by putting in trees that might have some color during the spring, or maybe it's early spring or later in spring. You also have a couple of planting beds that exist. I'm thinking about from your exit drive going towards not your exit drive, but your main driveway going towards the main entry. There's a couple of stairs, and those stairs have planting beds, but they're very lightly planted right now. You maybe reinforce those areas around the stairs with some smaller flowering trees as well. Next slide. A bunch of crab apples. They're tried and true for New York State as well. Many different varieties in many different colors. And one possibility is a red baron that we're showing right here. Next slide. There are white flowering varieties as well. And in this picture, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, the berries. Should mention that there are varieties with berries and then other varieties that are sterile that don't have any fruit. I work with many different school clients. Some don't mind the fruit. Some of them find them to be little projectiles. So that's something that the committee will want to think about, and the community will want to think a little bit about too once we start actually picking out trees. Another one is holiday gold crab apple. Again, another white flowering one with fruit. Next slide. Royalty crab, another one. This has darker leaves. The other ones have more of a standard green leaf. This has more of a maroonish leaf with pink flowers and reddish type of flowers. Moving on to a different variety of flowering tree, we see this on the fringes of our woods in upstate New York. It's amelanchier, it also called serviceberry, and that can be grown in a clump form, as shown in one picture, and then also a really nice singular trunk form. So another one, and that's a native tree, very hardy to the area. Next slide. Eastern redbud. There are green leaf varieties and maroonish varieties, some with purple flowers, some with white flowers. So another option. And move on. And I should mention that there was some thought by the committee that maybe in one of the schemes we might put in a holiday tree, and if that's the case with evergreens, just to discuss palette. The concolor fir that we see as a cut Christmas tree, that's a beautiful choice. Next slide. We have a Fraser fir, another one as well. Beautiful foliage, needle growth to it. White spruce. Next slide. Blue spruce as well, although that's a little bit less forgiving if somebody walks by it, and will stick you a little bit harder than the other plants themselves. So I think this might be the last one, the Douglas fir. again, just another evergreen tree that might be a tree that if you wanted to put in a holiday tree, that might be a variety to use. Before I get off all these different types of trees that we're talking about as well, I just want to emphasize that the types of trees and the plans that are presented, they have been chosen. We're just exploring options right now. And once we get more feedback, I think some final decisions will be made. But one of the things that the committee had discussed, and I think it's a great idea, is if we can buy trees locally to Middleburg, maybe Schoharie Nurseries out of Schoharie. The committee had also mentioned a nursery called Bob's Trees out of the Hageman and Galway area, Stories Nursery out of Freehold, Island Park Nursery out of Menands. That might be a good way to have trees that have been grown to the northeastern environment, upstate New York environment, similar to Middleburg, and maybe we can support some local nurseries as well. So, other thoughts from the committee?
I think you covered just about everything, Mike. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. That's all that I had from my notes here. So,
Michael, thank you very, very much. So what Mike and the rest of the committee just did was present 3 iterations of possible designs for our front courtyard. And that's some pretty complicated imagery. It takes some getting used to. So if you want to take another run through and look at the presentation again with perhaps some other folks in your family or some students and look at it and think about it some more, we would welcome you to do that. And so you can find this archived video on our website. And please do remember that we really want your feedback, your ideas, and how you feel about what it is we've presented here tonight. So there'll be a couple of feedback mechanisms on the website as well as the archive video. So I want to thank Mike, Alastair, the entire team, a really rock solid, informative, technically strong presentation to give people an idea of what we'd like to do. My thanks and gratitude. I'm looking out at the front lawn here, and I'd like to express my thanks and gratitude to Lisa Tennyson, our ag team, our ag teacher and her students for the tractor and the Christmas tree. The Booster Club for the lights on our brand new light poles, look beautiful. And lastly, the round table for the wreaths that are on both of the buildings in the district. So that's what we do in Middleburg. We work together and we do really good things. So this project's no different. So please use those feedback forms. I'm the Superintendent Brian Dunn. If you need me for anything, you have any questions at all, let me know. I'll get right back to you. And I think I'll say good night. And to all the kids watching, keep your fingers crossed. There might be a snow day tomorrow. And for you parents and caregivers, if Middleburg does have a snow day tomorrow, it is not a remote learning day. So it's a true traditional snow day. There may not be that many left in our future, so definitely enjoy it. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Stay in touch. Happy holidays, and thank you so much for your time. Good night.